All right, so boom. First thing is first. The G1 Climax has just concluded, and Zack Sabre Jr. is the official winner of the G1 Climax. The G1 Climax, for those of you who are not aware, is New Japan's arguably biggest. Well, it's not arguably. It's their biggest tournament. It is the equivalent of their Royal Rumble in the sense that the winner of it goes on to Wrestle Kingdom to challenge for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. And so the winner is Zack Sabre Jr., who has actually been on Ring of Honor, who has actually been on AEW programming all within the last year. And he represents TMDK. The reason why this is such of interest to me is because it feels like New Japan has lacked star power. However, if I were to pick a star, Zack Sabre Jr., I think can be considered a star for New Japan. Do you feel like this is a turning point for New Japan as far as them kind of reestablishing their star power in the wrestling marketplace?
You know, Zack Sabre Jr., great worker, no personality. I like him. Uh, this is New Japan doing as they usually do. They hiring, I forgot the term that they use for an outsider in Japan, but they using, another white man to try to get over. I got to throw the race card out there, but it's evident. I mean, look
Mm.
at it, Jay White, etc. Uh, he's a good worker, but at the same time, they got five people over there. So it's kind of like by default we had to go with Zack Sabre Jr. because we don't have too many other people to, the Bushis and everybody's kind of well, Koda's not there anymore, obviously, but Tasani, I'm messing up his name.
Tanahashi?
Tanahashi, there we go. Hey man, y'all gotta forgive me. I'm on 2 hours of sleep. Tanahashi, my guy, he about 45 with no knees. So by default they had to go with him. Is it a smart choice? It's the only choice they had at that time.
I do want to kind of piggyback off of that. I agree that Zack Sabre Jr. was the only choice. It sucks because I feel like there are a lot of times in pro wrestling where somebody feels like the only choice and it kind of discredits how good they are. I think one of the prime examples was in '01 when Jericho won the undisputed title. And it was like Stone Cold Rock, Jericho. And Jericho was kind of like, Vince, according to Jericho, Vince kind of like considered him like, oh, well, you're kind of like the only one left, something within that vein. And it kind of took away, unfortunately, from how the public perceived Chris Jericho because of how good he is as an in-ring talent. And I would say the same thing with Zack Sabre Jr. I feel like the unfortunate part of this is the fact that he is a great in-ring performer. I mean, he went bell to bell with Bryan Danielson, and it was one of the best matches that I've ever seen. And so to kind of be in a position where you're like seen as like, oh, he's the only guy that we can, it kind of almost in a way positions them as like you are the guy that is the guy because we don't really have any guys left. And for someone who is that talented, I think that that's just super unfortunate. So I think I want to get that out the way. Number two, I do think that you're right. New Japan has a habit of taking, especially over the past 10 to 12 years, just taking guys who are not from Japan and making them a main eventer or a form of a top guy, whether that's, whether that is Zack Sabre Jr., whether it at one point was David Finlay Jr., at another point it was Jay White, at another point it was AJ Styles, at another point it was Finn Balor,
Long Eagles
Kenny,
kid, they was hoping to get something out of him. Pause.
right. So, Kenny Omega. And by the way, all these guys are great. All of these guys are, in my opinion, first ballot. Well, if there is no New Japan Hall of Fame, but they're first ballot Hall of Famers as it pertains to the caliber of wrestlers these guys are. But I feel like New Japan has always, especially in the past 10 years, with the exception of Okada and Tanahashi, they've always relied on guys that weren't from Japan to kind of bring in a non-casual, or I should say a more casual audience, even with Chris Jericho, right? So I think that is something that is a little bit unfortunate, but I feel like Zack has the potential if he were to lean in to, his personality or lean into kind of who he was outside of the ring. I feel like he can be a star. And it also just depends on the trajectory of TMDK and how they book the rest of the faction, right? Like, I feel like anytime a top guy or a world title contender is in a position to, kind of take over, I feel like a very, very big component of their individual success is also the success of the people around them, because that is what frames the faction as being important, right? We can talk about Zack and TMDK. We can talk about Will Ospreay and the United Empire. We can talk about Finn and AJ when it came to Bullet Club. And so whenever they were on top, it wasn't just like, it's just me. No. All the guys that I roll with are top guys in whatever division that they're in. And I feel like that matters too. So I feel like there's a lot of factors that evolve to see if this is going to be a turning point for New Japan, because, you know, the moment that I saw them leasing the Bullet Club intellectual property to to TNA and to AEW, I was like, oh, something ain't up, because those are things that you normally keep to yourself. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But let us know how you feel about Zack Sabre Jr. winning the G1 Climax, and he is headed to Wrestle Kingdom to challenge for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Thank you guys so much for watching the Culture 316 podcast. If you liked what you saw, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you guys can stay up to date with all upcoming videos and events pertaining to Culture 316.